Well, Callum, we are live for the second time this in just a few days, really, and we've actually got a win to talk about today. Welcome back to Red Tinted Glasses Live. Hope you've all thawed out from last night's win over Livingston. Callum, have you thawed out yet?
Just about. It was absolutely freezing. I've just about got feeling back in my toes now.
Yeah, it was. I think the Merkland was quite lucky. I think last night was the first time I was glad not to be in the south stand. Felt a bit more protected from the wind and the snow, although it did get battered by that on the way home. But it was nice to return to the winning feeling and a rare clean sheet to go with it. And on the first day of the Advent calendar, the Dons peeled back the first door of their Advent calendar to reveal 3 points. A much needed 3 points, it's fair to say, Callum.
Oh yeah, the title charge is back on, and Glenn, that was bloody a lovely introduction there. I really, really enjoyed that, almost as much as the win actually.
Yeah, I know. I told you it was going to be a good opening link.
I'm very
Right,
impressed.
the team news as we always look at before we delve into the game. Funzo Ojo returned at right back, replacing Jack Gurr, who's probably still got plenty of nightmares of Jota running at him. And almost as rare as a clean sheet for us is Jet starting a game. He replaced the injured Dylan McGee, with Stephen Glass saying that he's probably going to be out for the St Mirren game as well. And Scott Brown making a miraculous recovery from his cramp to feature and play 90 minutes. And after the manager's comments around Matty Longstaff, he didn't even make the matchday squad.
Not really surprising, that last one, really, is
No.
it? The surprise inclusion of Jet, though, to be fair, we did mention it. Maybe we'll see a return. Then against former club. He did return. He was there. Was he playing? I'm not really sure. But he was there. He was involved on Matty Longstaff, though. I can confirm he is still in the northeast of Scotland, as my friend shared a jacuzzi with him at David Lloyd's. So that's about all I know on Matty Longstaff. But weird that he wasn't even on the bench after those comments from Mr. Glass.
Yeah, not really surprising, and I think also not surprising to see the return of Funzo Ojo. I kind of agree on the comments around Jet. He was involved. How involved he was kind of remains to be seen. But I think he did actually have a kind of good part to play because he gave the Livingston defenders something else to think about, in the sense that when we've been going with Ramirez or Watkins, they know who they can mark. But we almost had four different threats. I don't really want to count Jet as a threat, but he's something that occupied the mind of the Livingston defence. And I think we kind of maybe saw that in some of the passages of play that we had, where there was space created for the likes of Marley Watkins and Ryan Hedges to run at the Livingston defence.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, he's been thrown in there after a while not being involved. Maybe it wasn't his best performance. I think that's probably to be expected when that kind of thing happens, like we saw with Gurr, I suppose, at Dundee United too. But you're right. I think just his physical presence alone is sort of enough to sort of cause a distraction for the Livingston defence, to put them just something else to worry about, as you say. And then between him and then you've got the mobility of the other players on the park around him. It caused issues. I think it looked like a man who hadn't played in a wee while. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to have so many of you tuning in and getting involved in the comments. As Mini Sav 16 says here, Jet, just exactly what we were just saying there. Jet was good at creating this space. I pretty much agree about that. He did ruin a few attacks with his poor touch or slow pace. But yeah, he did have a good part to play in the goal, passed the ball to Christian Ramirez, who then fed in Ryan Hedges, and we'll come on to that. But I just wanted to pick up on one of the points that Marley Watkins said in his pre-match press conference. It was time for the players to do their talking on the pitch. I kind of hate when that saying gets branded about in the paper, because it almost always sets us up for a fall. But for once, we actually did our talking on the pitch, and it was quite a positive in first half. It was something we spoke about on the live on Monday, that we wanted to see Aberdeen come racing out the blocks, taking the game to Livingston. And maybe apart from a few nervous opening exchanges, we were largely dominant in that first half.
Yeah, I think we were dominant. We were comfortable throughout the whole game, really. But also at times, some of the build-up play, I just wish they would move on a little bit quicker. Maybe just take the one touch instead of two or three, and unsettle Livingston a little bit more. But that's just being probably being a bit too nitpicky. We did get the win. It was very, very comfortable. As you say, we did come out and straight from the off, we were just in charge of that game. Livingston offered little to nothing, and they were very, very poor. I don't really know what I expected, but they were still worse than that.
Yeah, I know you called them potentially being stuffy, but other than Bruce Anderson getting very frustrated all the time and just resulting in booting people, very little they offered. I know he flashed a shot wide in the first half, but only 2 shots of note and none of them being on target. I think the only other shot was when Odin Bailey cut inside late in the second half and it went past Joe Lewis's left hand post. But the Dons began to assert themselves. We finished with 75% possession, Callum, and it was kind of the football we've been promised, that attacking, free-flowing style that saw us take the lead. Jet involved feeding Christian Ramirez, who in turn fed Ryan Hedges to run down the wing. And when he cut inside, I fully expected him to go across Max Strycek and goal, but he went near side and just a beautiful finish. Really well-worked goal from an Aberdeen point of view.
Yeah, 100%. I think that was sort of one of the few cases where we maybe did see that free-flowing attacking football a little bit more, and it paid dividends. Good to see Ryan Hedges bagging a goal after, at times, not being up to the standard that we know he can be at this season, perhaps. Obviously, he had another chance as well in that first half that he maybe should have done a little bit better with too. But it was very, very positive. It was a nice move. One of the few bits of exciting play I can't recall from last night, but maybe I'm just being a bit biased, but who knows. But no, yeah, it was a great goal. I thought he took it well, as you say, nice link-up play too in the lead up to it. So enjoyable, very, very enjoyable. But hopefully we can see a little bit more of that going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And just hopefully your Wi-Fi continues to hold up as well. So if anyone is wondering about Callum's picture, if there is any sound issues, we do apologise. It is the joy of live broadcasting, as we discovered on Monday night. But there's something we're trying differently for the 99th episode, and maybe something that we'll continue to do for the midweek fixtures, or when Aberdeen play 2-3 games in a week, because it's something different to get you some Dons content out quicker to you anyway. But we saw the continued work rate that Christian Ramirez put in kind of off the ball. Yes, he didn't get his goal that we spoke about on Monday evening, but playing a vital role in grabbing the assist and just off the ball. And him and Ryan Hedges linked up brilliantly again in the 35th minute, and this time Max Strycek's boot denied Ryan Hedges what would have been a wonderful goal. It was probably fair play. Really got to credit the goalkeeper because it's an excellent save, but yeah, it would have been a brilliant goal to see if that had hit the back of the net.
100%. I think at the time I thought maybe Hedges could have done a little bit better there, but at the end of the day, it's got it on target. Amount of times we've seen us not even do that and waste these sort of chances and not even hit the target, test the goalkeeper. So fair play, yeah, he did make the save, but I say good link-up play again between Ramirez and Hedges there. I think Ramirez, maybe in front of goal, probably lacked service, to be honest, to him throughout the game, but that's the type of caliber player he is, I suppose. He can still create things for others, even when things aren't going his way for himself. So that's very, very positive. And as you say, good to see those two linking up once again.
Yeah, and I was actually very surprised that was Ryan Hedges' first goal of the season. I had to kind of double take first league goal, sorry, I should say, of the season, because I was kind of struck me by a bit of surprise that that's the first time he's netted in the cinch this season. But I just want to pick up on a point that you made a little bit earlier, and a point that the Caramel Metal Detectives makes here about it being a decent performance, but we're not going to get carried away as Livingston offered nothing of note. We are going to come on to that after the second half, but being happier if we scored 4 or 5. I've got it in the notes here about we ended the first half really well. We were on top, but to go back to the point you made, Callum, about we almost were trying to create the perfect goal. We went for a pass when a player should have had a shot. We had 18 shots in the game, 6 being on target. But do you think we could have maybe done a little bit better in front of goal? I know we shouldn't be too, critical, given we were looking for the win and that's what we got. But it was just frustrating at times, especially when the game's finally balanced.
I think so. I think when you end up with 75% of the ball at full time throughout the whole game, I think you are maybe looking to create a little bit more. I think you're right in that at times there was a few occasions where you thought, if you just take on the shot, and see what happens. I don't know, at times, well, as we saw in the game at down their way, the keeper sometimes a little bit lacking occasionally. Okay, but made a couple of good saves last night. But have a test with him, take a shot on instead of maybe, as you say, trying to create that perfect goal. I'd like to have seen us maybe a little bit more, as you say, maybe add another goal or two, but I suppose we're probably being picky again there. Just the fact we've actually won a game and the title charge is back on is, great to see.
I like how you're clinging on to that, and Brian Mearson picking up on that point on, former guest of the show, Willie Garner. If you've not listened to that interview with him, go back and check out in the archives, or it's on in the playlist on YouTube as well. That, he picked up on the point that we didn't play the ball quick enough and we were a bit too slow playing at the back. But, it's been kind of a thing a lot this season. We kind of go back and recycle the play. But I also think at times, I know it's been mentioned in the comments by a few folk already as well, that some of the attacks that we went when they were going through Jet kind of slowed us down a lot as well. But look, we can't get too critical. We won the game 2-0. But, I think, as Brian says, it was a valid point by Willie, and I think it's a valid point worth discussing as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I was watching the game, and at the time, me and the people around us were sort of saying it needs to be a little bit quicker, up the tempo slightly, because Livingston were up to absolutely nothing, and they didn't look particularly solid or stuffy defensively either. It would have been nice to see us get the ball going a little bit quicker, unsettle them at times, not only taking a few too many touches, but slightly under-hitting passes, and it's taken forever to get there. The players got to stand there and wait before going. Frustrating, and I agree with Willie Garner and what Brian said there, 100%. It's just... But at the same time, that's things we can improve on. We've still got the win, so it's not all bad, at least.
No, exactly, and it's things that we can maybe look to improve on, looking ahead to the game on Saturday against St Mirren, which of course we will review as well on this episode. Livingston looked to change things up at halftime. Bruce Anderson, largely ineffective, was replaced by even more ineffective Jack Hamilton for the second half, and Andrew Shinney came on to replace Obelai. I was actually quite impressed by Andrew Shinney. He seemed to, take the ball and try and create stuff for Livingston. Just unfortunately, nobody was interested to do something special with the ball for Livingston last night.
Yeah, very true. They were so poor, really, weren't they? And as I say, Anderson sort of not really up to much, and as you mentioned earlier, just really interested in kicking people. I think it looked very, very frustrated. I think probably due to the lack of service, and B being back at Aberdeen, he seems to have somewhat of a chip on his shoulder, and I suppose understandably so, perhaps. But yeah, they were very, very poor. They created very, very little, and offered a little to no threat throughout the whole game, really.
Yeah, there must be worrying signs for the Livy boys. I don't know if the top Livy boys are tuning in, but I suppose we should also, praise the couple hundred or so Livingston fans that braved the weather and made the journey up, because, to be honest, the crowd at Pittodrie wasn't overly great, just over 6,000, but so a lot of extenuating circumstances given the bad weather and the storm. A lot of people still in the northeast without power, but I don't really blame anybody for not going out in that weather. But hats off to the Livingston faithful that watch their side struggle against Rangers and then struggle even more and do very little against us last night.
Yeah, 100%. But, however, if you do want to be in attendance on Boxing Day and hopefully some better weather, be sure to enter our raffle. We've got two sets of tickets to give away, rather, to the game against Dundee on Boxing Day. The details on screen now. Look at that. So professional. Yeah. Get in contact with us. rentedandglancespodcast@gmail.com. You can get the details there. And, a couple other nice prizes in there. Signed Richie Byrne match-worn boots and a lovely print of the Subutio. Is it Subutio? Yeah, that's how you say it. Yeah, I've said it right. The starting 11 of the European Cup Winners' Cup final in 1983 against Real Madrid. Get involved.
Absolutely. Well done, Callum.
Thanks.
You learning the links well. And that wasn't even in the notes or anything for you to whack that in at that point. But no, absolutely. And we should just say thanks to everyone that's got involved so far. We're nearly at 100 numbers. Obviously, we're looking to get to 200 to give both Aber Necessities and the Community Trust £1,000 each to, improve the lives. I did actually get a message from Jack Grimmer not long before we came live. He is sorting the signed top out today, so we should get that in the post maybe by Monday, which might not be in time for the draw. But what we might do is we might do a separate draw towards the end of the season, and another chance. And we should also give Lynn, the SLO, a big shout out as well. For her, she's getting the raffle promoted on Red TV during the game on Saturday. So, for maybe people that aren't tuning in or are unaware of the raffle through our social media or podcast, that they'll get a chance to notice that and get involved. But just thanks again to everyone that has continued to get involved, and there is still time before we do the draw. I see Shane Fraser there in the comment there. He's got involved all the way over from New York. So just fantastic to see folk, from all across the world really getting involved and raising funds for two wonderful charities.
100%, especially, I know it's important all around the year, but especially around this time of year where we can spread a little bit more cheer after, maybe Aberdeen haven't given anyone much to cheer about.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also been some, kind words from people that have bought tickets and maybe not able to go to that game on Boxing Day, saying that, if they do win the ticket, they'd like it donated to Aber Necessities or another local children's charity, so that they can then pass on the tickets to people less fortunate or unable to go. So just some wonderful gestures being shown on the back of that. But back to the football, Callum. The changes I felt that Livingston made at halftime did help them at the start of the second half. And I don't know about you, but once again, I thought Aberdeen were a bit slow out the traps in the second half.
Yeah, again, a little bit. I think Glass maybe highlighted that as well in his post-match interview. A little bit frustrating, especially given some of the slow build-up play in the first half we'd already seen. But I suppose we eventually did get going. Eventually did get that second goal. But I just think, it's annoying because we should be taking the game to Livingston regardless. But I don't think it was helped by them. They were just so poor, and we were just very, very comfortable essentially at all times. And I think we maybe got slightly complacent with the play slowing down and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's the point that Shane makes here about that we were in pretty much control of the game, but we were a bit side to side when Livingston, I think, were there for the taking. But I suppose when we've not won in 3, the game is finally balanced at 1-0. You're almost between a rock and a hard place about pushing too hard and getting caught on the break when we know we are very vulnerable this season defensively. But Livingston, for as much as they huffed and puffed, I don't really remember anything that they did significant in that second half. The Odin Bailey shot that I referenced earlier that went past. And then the only real note of concern was when Jack Hamilton found himself in space behind the Aberdeen defence, running onto a long ball over the top. But Ross McCrory does excellently to make up the yards and then get in front of him. Just a real improvement that we've seen from Ross McCrory in recent weeks at centre half.
Are you referring to the one that he missed and then recovered? Was this the one we're talking about?
He might have missed it, yeah. It shows how much I'm probably paying attention to
Come
the game
on,
at the time.
Wow. No, yeah, he did miss it. I think we could probably put that in part down to the sort of the conditions with the weather. But yeah, he did excellently to recover. I don't know whether it was due to Hamilton's lack of pace or McCrory being very pacey. Probably a combination of both, but I did not expect him to recover so easily there. And it was very, very impressive. Again, as you say, from McCrory, very, very impressive on a whole, really. Seems to sort of be at home now at centre-back. You would maybe, right now, especially with Constantine still out, but even when he returns, you'd maybe argue now McCrory and Bates starting to create that partnership that even when other defenders are fit, they might struggle to get in ahead of them, which is encouraging, very encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose Declan Gallagher's maybe only a few weeks away from returning to fitness. Because I think in the first half as well, I thought McCrory was struggling with a little groin injury because he seemed to be holding that region for a few minutes. So I thought, here we go again. It's going to be another injury. But, he carried on and he proved to be fine. But, it's great to have so many of you joining in this live episode of Red Tinted Glasses, whether it be on our Twitter page at @RTG_podcast or over on the YouTube channel. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It's just been great to see the support that's being shown and so many of you getting involved in the comments and during this live, and we'll try and get through as many as we go on, because some of you are making some really good points that are going to go along nicely with the talking points that we've got coming up. And one of the talking points really was the red card that Louis Longridge received for a second booking in the 61st minute. But I think he's very lucky that his lunge/stamp on Funzo Ojo just after half time didn't get the straight red that it probably deserved.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Another thing, Glenn, was it Louis or was it Jackson?
I thought it was Jackson, but then I've only written Longridge down, so I went
just
with Louis
assumed.
instead.
Wow, I'm pretty sure it was Jackson, Glenn. Come on, I'm correcting you. This is poor. This is very, very poor. But no, I think we'll move on. I think you're right. I think it was the tackle on Ojo originally. Definitely worthy of a card, as you say. It probably on another day you might have seen it perhaps be another colour. And just thankfully, Funso Ojo was okay to carry it on. I think he's had enough troubles recently, just to say the least. So I'm just glad he was okay to carry on. And then go and say when I didn't even realise he'd already been booked. So that was me not paying attention. But I think a lot of people were very surprised about that one. But the Aberdeen players seemed incensed immediately. So they were clearly more
I think the reason why Aberdeen were incensed was because I think there should have been a foul in the build-up to the attack that we got going, Livingston had, and then when Hedges cleared the ball, obviously he got fouled. So I think the incense was more of the failure to award a previous decision. That was my take on it. So glad we're helping each other through these incidents. But so at points I was more enjoying watching the snowfall at times, thinking what the conditions were going to be like for driving home.
Yeah, a little bit of concern. Yeah, but you're right. We are keeping each other right. Between us, we've maybe paid attention to the whole 90 minutes. So that's the thing.
I mean, we haven't got through 99 episodes with fully paying attention in all cases, as we know fine well. Well, you do anyway, Carl.
Thanks for that one, Glenn. Throw me under the bus again.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just taking a leaf out of Stephen Glass's book and throwing people under the bus. But did you feel as the game went on at 1-0, obviously after the red card? I don't know about you, and I've seen it's been a point, as Brian Mirren again in the comments making about the terms of subs. I felt there was a real reluctance from Stephen Glass to go to his bench and make changes early in the game. We never saw a substitution until 2-0, but I don't know, was that a feeling you or anybody around you in the South Stand had at the time, that we should maybe try and get some fresh legs on? Because like's being said and being discussed about, Livingston were there for the taking, but we just seem to stick with the game plan.
Yeah, I agreed with that. I said at the time. It was basically once I saw Niall McGinn coming on as well that really hit it home. And I thought you've got Samuels and McLennan on the bench. So if you're going to bring on perhaps more attacking player, then surely make it one of them who will benefit from the game time rather than Niall McGinn, who's probably played more minutes for Northern Ireland than he has for us this season. Not checked that, but it's probably an educated guess. Yeah, there's a bit of concern. I mentioned Jenks as well in there too. A little bit frustrating. And then when you see Hedges go on to take a little knock too, and Watkins has had his problems with 2 games in a week. You thought maybe you could have taken him off a little bit earlier. And Ramirez as well, who's played a lot of football, perhaps could have been doing the rest, especially when it gets a little bit more comfortable at 2-0, especially with them down to 10 men. But just a small gripe, but still, it's just going forward. And perhaps we maybe like to see a little bit more, but. Yeah. At the end of the day, we're not being paid the big bucks to make the decisions.
No, absolutely.
We're about it.
I was going to say we're paid to, but we're not even paid to. We just like to have a moan about things that go on, and whether people agree or disagree is remain to be seen. But I suppose those substitutions didn't come into effect until after we scored our second goal. Our second goal coming from another set piece. That's the 9th set piece goal we've scored this season. And David Bates, I think we should give a special mention to David Bates, because I know I've been very critical of him on the podcast. Probably we saw for the first time last night the real potential, and probably why the Hamburg fans were calling him the Ginger Cafu during his full season that he actually played at Hamburg. Probably, I know you don't want to get carried away given the standard of the opposition, no disrespect to Livingston, but they really didn't show anything. But I thought he was really calm and composed and showed good instinct to get in front of Jack Hamilton. For the goal, I think just capped off how poor a night poor 45 Hamilton had in that second half. Yeah,
definitely. I think definitely would agree. I think taking it on his left foot as well, and it was very strange. I think we'd missed. I can't remember what game it was in, but there was one where was it the Motherwell one, or maybe even before that, where he was sort of in there and didn't quite get the finishing touch
He had one at Ibrox, I remember, where he should have probably done better from a free kick. So I wasn't at the Motherwell game, so if it wasn't in the highlights, I don't know.
I'm thinking maybe also the Celtic game as well, where he just didn't quite get there, but I can't quite remember exactly. Regardless, good to see him add that finishing touch on the left foot too. I think he did look a little bit better, as you say, calm, composed at times, maybe slightly uncomfortable, but that's probably just me being nitpicky again. But it is good to see. I think we are starting to see better performances as he's sort of probably up to speed now, getting a partnership with the understanding maybe of McCrory, which we've sort of been forced into. But regardless of how it happens, at least it sort of seems to be picking up now, and hopefully we can see them carry on, and there won't be disaster, and we won't have to eat our words on Saturday against Mirren.
Yeah, no, you've set that one up nicely, and I suppose I hope that the reluctance to change doesn't come back to bite us ahead of Saturday. Obviously, you mentioned Ryan Hedges limping off with an injury. It's once again he picks up an injury against Livingston as he did last season. That just really frustrated me because it kind of took away from, it was an excellent performance from Ryan Hedges, probably one of his better ones this season domestically. But you just think the games, at that point, I just didn't see Livingston even getting one, let alone 2 goals back into the game. I was speaking to the guy in front of me and he said, "You just make the changes now." As you touched on, Ramirez has played a lot of football. Watkins was no surprise coming off, given the question marks around him playing as many games that we've got coming up this week. But rest these key players. It's a busy schedule. I know after this Johnson game we've got 11 days. But give these players some, a rest ahead of Saturday, because we touched on Monday night, these 2 games are just as important, because it's all well and good winning last night. We've now got to go and follow that into Saturday against Mirren. So just again, a little bit of a sour note.
I think so, yeah. I think as soon as it goes 2-0, perhaps, looking at those probably front 3, we're not going to include Jet in that. He could do as much time on the pitch as possible, probably. Should have sort of looked at rotating those 3, especially when you've got younger guys who could do the experience and the game time on the bench too. And then it's, as you say, even more frustrating that Hedges goes and gets a knock. Hopefully nothing too serious, but pretty annoying.
Yeah, and again, I suppose that, like it's been mentioned as well, is why don't we see a Conor McLennan coming on ahead of a Niall McGinn? We know what Niall McGinn can offer this team. Again, you look at Jet, as much as he was frustrating me in that second half, I would have happily kept him on the pitch, because he's needing more minutes than, say, a Christian Ramirez or Marley Watkins. If we're, they're more likely to be needed on Saturday. We want to protect them, is what I'm trying to get at.
Did Jet stay on the pitch?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect. I thought you were referring to the fact that he did not stay on the pitch. Okay, never mind. No. Ignore my annoying face there, as you probably should most of the time anyway.
Yeah. But just before we move on to the preview the game on Saturday against St Mirren, I just want to go back to the comments that Marley Watkins made in his pre-match press conference. He said December has 5 winnable games. In it, we've won that first one against Livingston last night. Now it's on to Saturday, and it's quite refreshing to hear players have that mentality. And I really didn't think he minced his words at all in that pre-match press conference, saying players need to buck up their ideas. Conceding goals starts from the top of the pitch, same as creating goals starts from the back of the pitch. It's a team game. We can't just be looking, as much as me and you maybe like to look at individuals and blame certain individuals. My long staff, I'm not naming names, but I think it's just a nice honesty to see coming out of the dressing room.
Definitely, and I also think it makes a difference that it's coming from him as one of the players who's actually been performing in these games, even when we've not been getting results. That means I'm more likely to actually listen to him and believe him, really. And it's maybe it's sort of like, come on, get on my level kind of thing. Of course, he probably doesn't have that sort of mentality, but to be fair, wouldn't argue with it if he had was sort of suggesting that kind of thing. But it is refreshing that for someone to hear them speak like that. Especially, now we've got a win under the belt, and hopefully we can carry things on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I suppose we'll be hoping it's warmer weather as warm a weather we can hope for in December, because as Clive Duncan mentions in the comment, and I've seen the photo on Twitter this morning, mentioned to the psychopath, as he calls him, in the red shed, just wearing shorts and a polo shirt last night. Fair effort in that weather, because it was definitely not t-shirt and shorts weather last night.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, my toes were still cold, and I was wearing two pairs of socks, one of them being very thick, fluffy ones, which was a bit of concern. I do notice, however, you have ignored Mini Staff 16 saying that it was Jackson Longridge, but, okay, whatever.
I did see that, yes, but you corrected me. But yes, if everyone else wants to, then fire on, because it's not going to stop you all. But before we move on to the St Mirren game, which we are going to do, we'll just do another quick reminder on that raffle for anybody that's maybe just joined the live slightly later than when Callum mentioned earlier. We are, of course, running a raffle ahead of our 100th episode, which will be released next week. It is our 99th today, coming to you live across YouTube and our Twitter page. £10 a ticket. We are hoping to sell 200 numbers to raise money for Aber Necessities and the Community Trust. As Callum said, it's 2 pairs of match tickets to the Aberdeen-Dundee game on Boxing Day, a signed pair of Richie Byrne boots, and a Subbuteo print of the European Cup winning cup lineup. Email redtintedglassespodcast@gmail.com or fire us a DM. I know a lot of you have been, or contacting me directly on Facebook, so fire on and give us a message, and we'll sort you out with the payment details to secure your number, and hopefully we can get up to that 200 target before Monday. As we also said, Jack Grimmer, a friend of the show and former guest of the show as well, he's looking to give us a signed Wickham shirt as well. So obviously thankful to that, and that might just end up being a separate raffle we do later on in the season as well.
Definitely, Mr. Grimmer gone up even further in my estimations now.
Yeah, you're still just waiting on your Tom Grennan tickets, though.
I know, Jack, if you're listening, maybe throw some Tom Grennan tickets in there. You never know. I think we're maybe chancing our luck a little bit too much.
Yeah,
there,
maybe. Although I don't think you'd want them raffled off if we found them in the package.
I'll be whatever necessary to keep them. Well, actually, no, because everybody's always buying tickets. Doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Move on.
Yeah, move on. Saturday sees St Mirren travel north to Aberdeen after the Dandies leapfrog them in the table. We sit 7th, St Mirren 8th. It'd be nice to get revenge over the Buddies after what was a very frustrating last fixture when we went down 3-2 after looking very comfortable at 2-1 up.
Definitely. Let's hope Curtis Main is nowhere to be seen, first of all, and hopefully we can keep 11 players on the park for once. That'd be nice.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of games involving Aberdeen this season that involves red cards.
One way or another, yeah.
Yeah. But St Mirren will be travelling north with only scoring 1 goal in their last five games. That was the Jamie McGrath wonder goal that he scored against Livingston in a 1-1 draw a couple of games back. It's been a real disappointing run, I suppose, for the Buddies in terms of, being prolific in front of goal. That's definitely got to be something we hope continues this weekend.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. I mean, you mentioned the wonder goal. We all know what he's capable of. They do have very capable players. We know what Connor Ronan can do, and more players do. I mean, Brophy, if he comes back in, Main's always, usually involved in a goal against Aberdeen when he's playing. But I think by the sounds of things on the radio last night, when we got back in the car, that St Mirren were probably pretty frustrated. Jim Goodwin pretty frustrated with the result against Ross County. There doesn't sound like a terrible performance, but perhaps didn't do enough to get the winner. Hopefully that'll carry on. But we do know what they're capable of. We know it only too well, having, as you mentioned, the previous game 3-2. Some revenge would be nice. But honestly, it doesn't need to be pretty again. I know we've been complaining about things, but just get some points on the board, really.
Yeah.
We're nitpicking, but as long as we get the points on the board, then regardless, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I think right now points are more important than the performance. And I suppose the point you just made about the Jim Goodwin's comments, if Dave Cormack was having a look at the data from the game, then he's certainly going to take away a lot that St Mirren will probably be disappointed they didn't get the 3 points, because it looked quite a dominant performance based on the data. But as we know fine well, data does not win games this season. How do Aberdeen approach this game, Callum?
I think probably in a similar fashion to the game against Livingston. I would guess. I suppose St Johnstone perhaps would offer more of a threat. they're no St Mirren. They're a lot of a better side. Yes, I'm glad I got in there before you did.
I was going to, but I thought I'll let you go.
I'm getting too ahead of myself. I'm just that excited. St Mirren are, they're a better footballing side. The players we just mentioned, they're capable. I think Aberdeen do have to come out and look to control it. However, again, dominate the game, and you'd like to think perhaps maybe if we up the tempo and things, though, the chances will come again, and let's just hope that the players are there to take it. You think probably sort of similar starting 11 as well. I don't know if Jet will stay in, however, and hopefully Hedges will be fit. But we've got capable replacements, I suppose. That Austin Samuels could come in.
Really?
Yeah, why not? Well, I mean, if Hedges and Jet aren't going to play, then would probably be mad. In fact, no.
Teddy Jet's probably. Yeah. And that was going to be the question: does or has Jet done enough? I mean, I think it's quite an obvious answer, but to retain his place ahead of the weekend's game.
No, but at the same time, he's not played for a long time. He's probably not very match sharp, so it wouldn't surprise me if he maybe keeps his place again. There is a football in there. He was on the books at Arsenal for a reason. He's good technically. I think sometimes just a bit lumbersome is maybe the word we used to describe.
I think it's just his energy when he loses the ball. There's no desire. Well, it certainly feels watching to chase back what he's lost, but. I suppose what he brought to the side yesterday was a distraction, I'm going to call it. I was going to say threat, but I think that's maybe too kind. A distraction to the Livingston defence that obviously they know what he can do from last season, and they know what a presence he is. So it almost gave their defenders something else to think of, because as I said, Christian Ramirez seemed to find himself in a lot of space to link up with Hedges or play a ball into Watkins. So there was something else there for, the opposition to think about. And it will, I can't blame Stephen Glass if he decides to go with that method again. 4 attackers, it's what we want to see at home. We want to see Aberdeen taking the game to an opposition. We don't want to see us being reserved at home. It's, it's all about this fortress with Tawdry, get that home record up and it improves. Our away record has been well documented is pretty terrible this season. So we need to start, getting the wins at home.
Yeah, I would agree. I suppose you provide that sort of distraction, and then hopefully, with more game time, more sharpness, perhaps we'll see him improve as an actual threat himself too.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Just hope that Ryan Hedges is fit enough for the weekend's game at St Mirren, just so he can go and back up the performance that he put in last night as well. I suppose we should look at the threats that St Mirren pose. You already mentioned Connor Ronan. We saw what he can do in the reverse fixture in Paisley, and Jamie McGrath was well documented. What's going to happen to him in a few weeks when the January transfer window reopens, obviously close to signing for Hibs, and Aberdeen have been noted to have an interest in him as well, so maybe wants to put himself in the shop window. And I suppose another former Aberdeen player alongside Curtis Main returning to Tawdry is Joe Shaughnessy. He's got a good record against us, and he'll be returning from his suspension that he picked up against Hearts to return to the centre of St Mirren's defence this weekend.
Annoying. I think he is maybe never would have been good enough to maybe cut it here, but he is a very reliable Scottish Premiership defender. He can if you've got a bit of a dodgy back four, he's the type of player that could maybe sturdy things up in there. Annoying that he's back, and he obviously provides a goal threat when set pieces, etc. too. But it's up to us to test him, and you like to think with players like Hedges, if fit, Ramirez, Watkins, etc., that we can do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I suppose, I touched on there St Mirren's, poor form in terms of in front of goal, and it's been very well documented, but maybe somewhat unknown is actually St Mirren's away form over the last 5 games. The only defeat they've had in that last 5 games was at Tynecastle, and obviously Hearts have been pretty imperious at Tynecastle this season. But they also came from 2-0 down at Fir Park to draw that game 2-2. So just the one defeat in the last 5. So despite their struggles in front of goals, they're still churning out results.
Definitely, they are. that I think a lot of that maybe comes down to Jim Goodwin. I think he's
Mhm.
probably a very good manager. I presume he'll probably go on to better things at St Mirren eventually. No disrespect to St Mirren, but he gets there's capable players there, and he gets performances out of them. And even if they're not winning games, he tends to like to make sure that they don't get beaten, they don't lose them. So it won't be an easy task at all at Pataudry. But hopefully we'll have enough about ourselves and can build on that performance against Livingston, and get another 3 points, a much needed 3 points.
Yeah, and I was looking at the fixtures that St Mirren have actually got after playing us this weekend. As I said, we sit currently a point above St Mirren, sitting in 7th level on points with Hibs, who occupy 6th on goal difference. And St Mirren travel to Easter Road and before playing games against Celtic and Rangers, so they've got quite a tough run of fixtures coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So probably they're looking at this game as a chance to pick up points before that said tough run. But I would like to think Aberdeen are included in the tough run. But equally, from an Aberdeen point of view, we should be looking at this as a chance to make it 4 points that St Mirren have to make up to catch us if we go on to win the game, and keep on Hibs' coattails, stay level with them, and also try and bridge the gap and begin to start looking up the table. Because again, if to not look too far ahead, the game against St Johnstone coming up a week later, they're not exactly in the best form. To quote Marley Watkins, it's winnable games that are coming up, and we're not going to obviously get carried away after just beating Livingston, but we should try and take some momentum from that victory into these upcoming games against the two Saint sides.
100%. I think you said there, when you start looking up the table, that would be nice to have,
Yeah.
to start to have that problem again, rather than looking down and watching our backs all the time. But you're definitely right. A chance to pick up another 3 points and then going into the St Johnstone game as well. If you can then make that 9 points from a possible 9, then all of a sudden things are turning around a little bit again, and hopefully we can then build from that even further in towards going into the winter break, and then also in January too. Hopefully we can improve the squad where we can too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because we'll have 3 games in the space of 7 days over that Christmas period, with the Hibs game now being moved to the 22nd. So yes, okay, we're going to have the luxury of a nice 11-day break between St Johnstone and Hibs to get players fit and fresh for that, whilst they're churning out games every couple of days. But equally, it'll affect us in the back end over that Christmas, Boxing Day and 29th period. So it'd be just great to carry on, because at the end of the day, yes, we've got that win on the board, but look, we know what happened last time. We went on a good run, we then followed that up with 3 defeats. We want to try and build a bit of consistency, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, we're sort of going through patches here. We need to, as you say, yeah, consistency is the key word there, really. We need some of that this season. It's been severely lacking in terms of results, performances, team selection. So it'd be nice to build some of that up this December.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's hope that that we can do that on Saturday. Let's hope maybe there's a few more in the crowd on Saturday as well. Obviously, certain teams picking up on the poor attendance last night, but as we said, extenuating circumstances that will have affected a lot of people attending the midweek game against Livingston last night. But positives to build on, Callum, and let's hope it's another positive performance to speak about when we reconvene on probably Monday night to discuss the St Mirren game.
Yep, definitely. Fingers crossed. We'd like to think after another 3 points, perhaps at least a few more hundred, if not 1,000 or two, maybe added to that crowd. Perhaps it being a Saturday and a 3 o'clock will help too. And also, I expect probably pretty good St Mirren crowd too. They've brought pretty decent followings up here, usually quite loud, as well, which is always nice. So hopefully there'll be a bit of that too.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's getting to those festive day outs that more people seem to enjoy anyway. And we hope that you have obviously enjoyed the live episode that we've done. It's our second one in a week. It's had its challenges, Callum, Wi-Fi in particular, but it's held up today.
It has. We've had our challenges, and Michael comments, friend of the show, regular guest of the show, has highlighted one there. Are you ignoring it, Clive?
Well, I never said where that St Mirren were playing Hibs, so yes, I am
Well,
ignoring it.
I'll leave that for you two to discuss in the group chat.
Yeah, do that. But thank you again to those of you who have kindly tuned in to this live, whether it be on our YouTube page or Twitter at RTG_podcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, rtg.podcast. Like and subscribe on YouTube. If you are watching on there as well, we do really appreciate the continued support. And I've said episode 100 will be out next week. And of course, that raffle, providing we get to the 200, we would like to get at least 100 numbers to merit drawing the raffle on Monday, because, you know, our necessities, we've been speaking with them, and £500 would help 15 children across the northeast get Christmas Eve boxes and get some clothes to them for the winter time, and, you know, a few more presents under their respective trees as well. So £100 numbers is the minimum target that we want to hit, but ideally we'd like to get to the 200 to make it worthwhile for the draw. But we will get that done on Monday, and episode 100 will be out next week. 100 episodes, Callum, who'd have thought it?
Not me. I think we could just leave it at that. Goodness me. It seems like a lifetime ago that we started this now. It's been a very long, year and a bit now, I suppose. And I'd like to think we can actually do live shows, considering we could barely record a normal one back then.
Yeah.
And even then it came across very nervous and timid, I suppose, probably. I've come a long way. So I'd like to thank you for that. Thanks for getting me involved.
No problem, and thanks for sticking with me throughout the journey. It's been, season and a half now, and it's come a long way. And I suppose we should also thank those of you that are tuning in. Whether, of course, this episode will be released on the audio platform. It's quite touching, actually, seeing us being mentioned as top podcasts in people's Spotify Wraps, and that, to think that people listen to our opinion on a regular enough basis.
I mean, we are gargantuan, aren't we? We are huge. To be fair, it's weird being included in a Spotify Wrapped. Never thought that would be happening. No. Yeah, pretty weird. Just pretty weird. Not really used to that kind of thing.
No,
cool.
But as I said, thank you very much for your continued support, whether it be on audio, video, or following us wherever you do. And as we also said, continuing to support that raffle for our necessities and the community trust. And until next time, episode 100. We'll see you then.